you to talk a bit more about the next presidency of the United States and, the conversation around what the First Lady is going to do, Melania Trump. And the President-elect has said that Mrs. Trump and their 10-year-old son, Barron, will move to Washington very soon after he's finished with school, but they've not put an actual date on that move. And the idea is that they may well end up staying longer in New York than in Washington. Lots of different views on this online about whether or not the First Lady and first child should be obliged to be in the White House as the first family of the nation. Let's speak to a couple of people who've been discussing this that we've brought together to come on the radio to talk about it here. Charlotte Laws is live with us from Los Angeles, author of something called Rebel in High Heels. Hi there, Charlotte.
Hi.
Good to have you there. We can also speak to Karen Monroe, who lives in southwestern Ontario in Canada, not very far from the border, but you were in New York, Karen, for many years, weren't you? Welcome.
Yes, I was. I still travel there occasionally. I'm a writer and I visit publishers.
Good to have you there, Karen. Well, why don't you start us off? Do you think that Melania will be a good idea for her to be in New York rather than Washington? Does it matter?
I think it does matter. I think it shows a marked disinterest on the part of Melania to move into her new role as FLOTUS. It seems that she's treating this as merely another one of Donald's business ventures, the launch of a new brand, in which she has no interest at all. Given that she doesn't bring much to the role of First Lady, not in the way that Michelle did with a law degree and much civil work, finding her to delay embracing the role is a disappointment to many friends of mine who do live in the States.
Charlotte, go ahead and talk to Karen.
Well, I think you're disrespecting her quite a bit. I think this is shows that she's independent. I think it's a step forward for feminism. It makes sense to me that she would want to keep her child in school where he knows the teachers and his classmates. Children can suffer psychologically, socially, and academically when they're pulled out of school. And if you're pulled out of school twice during your school years, you can fall as much as 6 months behind. So I feel like she is making a rational decision, and it doesn't mean she can't do her job from New York as far as helping the cyberbullying cause, which is something she said that she has an interest in, and I'm sure she will travel to D.C. quite frequently.
Her interest in bullying is very new. It's just within the past few weeks that she's shown an interest in that, which is very encouraging. It's also true, though, that she's not just any mother. This isn't anyone asking her to pull her child out of school simply because her husband's flown off to the West Coast to lunch Trump vodka. She has a new role. She has a new life, at least for as long in 4 years as they can manage it. And that she does have a marked role to play, and that tradition and history would mark that she do this from the White House. While Trump has certainly promised change, and I do celebrate women on their independence, this might not be the very place to start. The security alone, the headache, the nightmares, the cost, particularly the cost to the taxpayers of Manhattan. And remember, although the Trumps live there, it's been revealed they pay no taxes. It'll cost just over $1 million a day to keep Melania and Barron in New York City for the duration of several months.
And of course, we don't know for sure yet. Nothing has been revealed about the taxes so far, which is why it's of great interest to people, because that audit has not been made public yet. Go ahead there, Charlotte.
Well, I think that she's really buying into this traditionally accepted gender roles in which the husband's career takes priority over the female's career in life. And it's basically called traveling spouse phenomenon. And the idea is, and most people have bought into this, that, the woman is supposed to tag along with the male, but forget about her life. That doesn't really matter. And as for the cost, that would be the only consideration, but there have been other first wives in the past who have spent quite a bit of taxpayer money on security, such as Jackie Kennedy, who traveled constantly. So I don't really think you can use that.
This would be also the case should Melania move to the White House. So you're advocating that Americans now embrace the lack of a FLOTUS, that there isn't one needed, a First Lady, that you're quite happy with the President, and that there should be no further representation required in the White House.
Well, if you had a single president who wasn't married, that's what you would have. But I also suspect that Ivanka Trump will probably be a proxy wife, in a sense, and be present for many of the social events. But yeah, I'm not one that believes that we need to maintain tradition just for tradition's sake. And I welcome a new idea. I welcome a new way of looking at the White House and the presidency. Certainly nothing that Trump has done during the campaign or during this election has been traditional or common, so there's no reason to believe his presidency would be any different from that.
And of course, we've already seen, haven't we, Ivanka Trump photographed alongside Donald Trump when he met the Japanese leader Shinzo Abe, and also Argentina's president said that she joined a phone call with Donald Trump that he took part in. You're listening to World Have Your Say. We're talking about the role, and the acronym has been used a couple of times, FLOTUS, the First Lady of the United States, who will be from January, Melania Trump. And this conversation about whether she would be okay just staying in New York for a little while Barron Trump finishes school and not being in the White House. Now, we've heard from Karen in southwestern Ontario, who has lived in New York for many years too. Charlotte is in Los Angeles. Somebody's dog was in the background as well, which is good to hear them join in the programme too. And, oh well, it's good to hear them, and they're very welcome to join in too. But I'm very pleased to introduce Anita McBride, who is live with us from Washington. Now, Anita served in the White House as assistant to President George W. Bush and Chief of Staff to First Lady Laura Bush from 2005 to 2009. Anita, welcome.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm fascinated by the conversation. I've been listening in to your participants.
Well, it's great to have you there because you've heard a couple of different ideas about the role of the First Lady. What would you advise the incoming First Lady that she needs to know about the role?
Well, I think one of the most important things to understand in this scenario is the White House will adjust to this change. It will adjust to its new occupants because it adjusts to every first family. And conversely, first families ultimately adjust to life in the White House. I agree with what Charlotte said, that this personal decision that Mrs. Trump had to make in order to secure, her child's well-being is really important. And we know 8 years ago that Mrs. Obama considered the exact same thing. She fully planned to not move to Washington until the end of that school year so that Malia and Sasha could finish school in Chicago. She ultimately made a different decision, but she seriously considered it. So I think it will be an adjustment for the White House. It will be an adjustment for Americans who are used to seeing the first family, together on the first day. It's a ritual and a tradition we've come to expect. But I also agree with what one of your participants said, too. This entire campaign and election has been about some fundamental change, top to bottom, and they have rewritten the playbook on everything that we do, and so it's extending to this as well. But it will work. There's an infrastructure at the White House that will make things happen like they normally do, and 21st century technology allows you to be connected and to make decisions from afar.
And
I will say this, though. The one thing for the president, being president of the United States is one of the loneliest jobs in the world, and not having that sanctuary of family around on a daily basis, could, be one thing that he will be ready, to have them move down there when they are ready to do that.
It's a fascinating insight you give, Anita. Does anybody tell you when you become First Lady how to do the job? Do you get advice? Do you get people sort of telling you what's gone before and helping you? I mean, quite apart from the person that you're replacing, and we've already seen Michelle Obama meet Melania Trump.
Right. That is one, it's a great question because, no one can completely prepare you for stepping into this position. And we've had growing interest in the position and growing expectations of what an American First Lady or the presidential spouse would do with the privilege of this opportunity. But no one completely prepares you for it. The best advice that I would have given, that I would give to anyone, and they certainly don't need my advice, but is to be yourself. When you ultimately choose a project to work on, it would be something that you care passionately about, that you can make a difference, and you would have some credibility on. And then, slowly roll out those initiatives. You don't have to do everything at once. So, and we saw that with Mrs. Obama is a great example of that. It was 9 months before she rolled out her first initiative because her primary goal was that I want to know that my girls are happy here first. And when they came home from school and said to their mother they're feeling settled, then she knew she can start to embark on the busy work of being First Lady of the United States again.
Well, look, thanks to all three of you. I do have to apologise because we're going to have to move on at that point because it's a fascinating conversation, though, and we appreciate your participation, all three of you. Karen in Ontario, Charlotte in Los Angeles, and Anita McBride, who was assistant to President George W. Bush, Chief of Staff to First Lady Laura Bush towards the end of the George W. Bush presidency. Thanks to all three of you. Do carry on that conversation. You can message us on our Facebook page if you have got something to say on that as we continue to keep an eye on the preparations for that handover of power in the United States in January next year. You're listening to